Hi guys, it's Bar from Ignite, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to answer a source question in modern history. But before we get into it, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check out our website ignitehsc.com.au for more extensive resources. My first tip for answering source questions in the HSC is to have this acronym in your back pocket. This is called Tomac. So this is an acronym that you should keep in the back of your mind when looking at the source to help you analyze all the different aspects of it and to make sure that you're not missing anything. Letter T has tone and type. So when we're looking at tone, we're looking at whether it's positive, cynical, comedic, is it negative, is it overly exuberant? We're also looking at type. So is this a primary source, a secondary source? Is it a cartoon, a newspaper clipping, a photograph, something from a diary? These are things to keep in mind because it helps you to piece together why this source was created. The O is then for origin. This is really important because where a source is created is very important to what it is trying to achieve. For example, a source created in England during World War II will have a very different purpose than a source created in Germany during World War II. The M is for motive. So you need to try and put yourself in the shoes of the author. What was I trying to achieve by having this source made? Is this a propaganda poster? Am I trying to convince somebody of something? Is this a cynical cartoon? Am I trying to point out how ridiculous something is? And then for A, we have audience. Who is intended to look at this poster? Who will benefit from it the most? Who is it targeting? And then C, we have content and context. So content includes everything from color, composition, text. It's really important when you're looking at a source to always acknowledge any text that is in it. This is often something that is ignored, but it's usually really important. And then we have context. So anything that we know about where it was created, what time it was created, gives a lot of information about the source. This is a really powerful example of a source that has a lot of things to analyze in it. So this is actually a cartoon which was created by a New Zealander cartoonist, political cartoonist called David Lowe. And here we have the depiction of the Night of Long Knives, which is part of the consolidation of Germany. We have a very specific tone immediately when we look at it. It's very comedic. Hitler looks like he's hunched over. He looks quite ridiculous. Next to him, we have his henchmen, which are both parodies of themselves. Goebbels cowering on the floor, and Göring is like a Viking. And the type is obviously a primary source. This is a political cartoon. The origin of this, as we spoke about, is from New Zealand, and this was published, as you can see, in 1934, so in July 3rd, so very close to the time of this occurrence, the Night of Long Knives. So it's a response to what happened. And then if we're looking at the motive, it's to bring awareness to what's happening in Germany and to ridicule what's happening in Germany, as well as pointing out that this can be quite serious, as we see with our dead bodies and a smoking gun. The audience for this is obviously the general public reading a newspaper where this was published. And then if we look at the content, we can see here the text, which is important. They salute with both hands now. So rather than saluting out of loyalty, we're saluting in surrender. If we know what happened in the Night of the Long Knives, we know that the SA was ordered to be murdered by the SS as an order from Hitler, and he murdered other political opponents as well. And we can see that Hitler's unkept promises is written here on the ground, and that is really a criticism of Hitler and a criticism of the Nazi Party for not keeping their promises, for being hypocrites, and for being quite ruthless. My second tip for analyzing sources is to know the different types of questions that you might get. These are 3 specific questions which can throw people off in the exam. We have a compare and contrast question. This can be quite intimidating because I'll usually give you 2 or 3 sources and ask you to compare them. In a question like this, you have to find the similarities and differences, and you have to make sure that whatever the mark allocation is, you divide it equally between the sources, and also leaving yourself points to write about the similarities and the differences. It's important not to write too much for a question like this, as you have to remember to keep to a time frame in the exam. Then the next type of question is a value or limitations or usefulness question. So this is when a question will be asked, asking you about whether this source is of value to a historian studying, or how useful is this in demonstrating some specific aspect. For this, I really recommend using Tomac. This will help you get everything that you need to out of the source before you then have to point out what is missing. Because if something is asking you whether it is useful, you have to acknowledge why it is useful with Tomac, and then also acknowledge why it might not be useful and what it is not giving you. There are also going to be to what extent questions. This is like in the essay, you have to either agree with the statement or you have to disagree, and you also always have to add an extra factor. Even if it is giving you 3 sources and 12 marks, you always have to make sure that you acknowledge that there are other factors which haven't been presented to you with the 3 sources. Otherwise, you have not answered the question. Here's an example of a more difficult question. I have here, to what extent do these sources explain how the Nazis consolidated power in the period to 1934? I've only chosen one source to look at here, but in a question like this, you would most likely be given 2 or 3 or even 4 sources to analyze. Here we've been given some text, so we should always read that and always pay attention to it. It says a Nazi youth propaganda poster, so they're giving us some information, and then it's translated for you. It says, come to us, and it's from 1933. If they've given you this, it's a really good thing to pick up on. So you would say, this is showing us how the Nazis consolidated power to a great extent, because it is a propaganda poster which is aimed towards a youth. You can connect this to the Hitler Youth. You can talk about how come to us is a big encompassing term which promotes unity. And you can talk about the color here, the color theory, which is making the Nazi flag very salient. And this is all important stuff which you would talk about. Make sure to also include another factor, such as the consolidation of the courts, or the elimination of other political parties, or the consolidation of the family unit. These are all things that should be considered. This is another example of one of the more difficult questions. This is a comparison question. So this question would be asking you to compare whether the impact of the Nazi regime on the lives of the people. Here we have a really interesting question because it's showing you something that there isn't a lot of similarities between. Here we have a propaganda poster which promotes Aryan ideals, ideals of family, of Nazi militarism. As we can see, it's the eagle of National Socialism. So the party is protecting the people, the party is encouraging them to have children, to have a family. And then on the other side, we have the Nuremberg laws, which are very punitive laws which restrict the rights of the Jewish community in Germany. These are 2 things which wouldn't be very obvious for you to compare. They might be very difficult. A similarity that I would say that you could talk about is the fact that it is exemplifying the effect on life on 2 different ends of the spectrum. This is propaganda, and this is also a form of propaganda because it is a law, and when the German people would see this law, it would make them despise the Jewish people. Differences are also very easy to point out. Once you have analyzed the sources, you could put the differences on this is the higher end of society and this is the lower end of society. But overall, it's really showing how the Nazi regime impacted all aspects of life for all different types of people, high and low end of the social class. My third tip is to always pay attention to the information which is given to you with the source. We have already spoken about this a little bit, but it might be a little text box underneath that gives you extra context. It might be a translation of some words. It could be the year, the author, things like that which really help you to understand the source and are really important for you to acknowledge. My 4th tip is to try to integrate your own knowledge into your responses. The marker wants to see that you have a wide range of knowledge and that you're not only using what's been given to you with the sources. This will enhance your answer and help you to write a better response. That's all for today, and thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and that like button, and to check out our website, ignitehsc.com.au, for more extensive resources.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you do like the content, subscribe to our channel and we'll have more videos coming your way.
That's right, guys. Thanks for watching, and please make sure you check out our online resource database. We've had a team of state rank achievers and heads of English put these together for you, covering everything from essay structures and examples all the way through to craft of writing and comprehension skills. So check them out at ignitehsc.com.au, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.